And that all goes to the issue of trust. So everyone has to be in it for the same reason and rowing in the same direction, or the company will, they may not fall apart, but they will come down and they won't realize progress the way they need to.
You talked about Aegis Sciences and Hire Slow and Fire Fast. Yep. There was an article in the paper about a week or so ago about Lampo Group, which is Dave, he's on the radio.
Ramsey?
Dave Ramsey. They are probably the most methodical hiring company I've ever seen. I have friends who work there and friends who have worked there, and it's very difficult to get on there because they learn everything. But as a result, their retention rate is very high. I would have to agree. So, 5 dysfunctions. We took that whole book, kind of scrunched it into about 2 minutes. One other really quick thing, and I'll just go through this quickly. Remember we talked about when team membership changes, the team changes? Tuckman's model, if any of you have ever had a basic management course, you've seen this before. Forming, storming, norming, performing. Anybody ever seen it? Mm-hmm. Okay. So when a team gets together, you start to figure out, who's going to do what, who's going to play which position, and that's not just from an athletic standpoint, but every team has people in certain positions. And at that point, the team is very much focused on a leader. Then they go through the storming phase. And the storming, remember we kind of talked about the pyramid. You start with trust, and then you start dealing with conflict. There's an interesting parallel between Lencioni and this, because under storming, not everybody's going to be happy with the position they play. So you may say, is this bringing up a story? I can see it.
No, I was just thinking my team, my freshman academy, we're still in storming.
Are you?
Because, the first year, it was a brilliant team, and then that started splitting us up, and I don't think we've ever recovered. And then they're changing everything again. A lot of teachers are gone, we have new teachers, and it's a lot of this complaining, and I hate that. But I know how it used to be.
Change can be good, but change for change's sake is not necessarily productive. The other issue is sometimes people confuse storming with, they actually think that conflict's a problem. Having that kind of conflict is good. You want people to compete. But then they have to come to a consensus, which means we agree this is the way we're going to move forward, or I can live with it. Doesn't mean that you're totally happy with it, but I can handle it. Then there is norming. Not in the team, everybody kind of knows what their role is, they kind of understand what their position is. Then they actually start to figure out how are we going to move forward. And after norming, they perform. It almost becomes, if you heard of the phrase unconscious incompetence, how many of you can just do something without even thinking about it? So hitting a baseball, do you have to think about hitting the baseball? It just actually became one.
At one point. Now I would really want to think about it.
What about in soccer? So you played midfield, correct? So when you get to a certain point on the field and a certain situation arises, do you have to think about it, or do you just instinctively know what to do because of experience?
I think about it because you got to figure out, for me, I got to figure out which direction I want the ball to go.
Right. But because of prior experience, you kind of understand what the opportunities are. So it's not like, it doesn't mean that you would never get into a situation where you've never seen it occur before, but you probably had enough experience with your team once you get to a certain point that you kind of know what your options are. Would that be fair? What about can you see a classroom or a school application to this? Have you ever been part of a classroom or a school group or a faculty where the group had worked together for so long that they actually became like a finely tuned machine?
I've had that. We switched to this thing called modeling in the classroom, and it's very student-centered, and they're in a large group doing discussions. And at the beginning of the year, it kind of goes through those those stages. I mean, and they're storming, and the boys are really, "Oh, I'm going to put my idea out there," and I'm having to pull the girls out and make them talk and get them to become leaders in the classroom. By the end of the year, I mean, and I'm highly involved at the beginning. By the end of the year, I'm out of that circle, and they are on their own, and they're developing those ideas, and oftentimes going far, far beyond what my expectation ever was for them.